We can't hear you in here, Pat, if that matters. All right, welcome everyone to the May 6, 2015 Shakopee City Council meeting. Ms. Henson, could you please call the roll?
Yes, Mr. Mayor. Councilmember Whiting.
Here.
Councilmember Luce.
Here.
Councilmember Mokel.
Here.
Councilmember Lehman.
Here.
Mayor Tabke.
Here. Thank you. All stand for the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, item number 3, approval of the agenda. Are there any additions or corrections to the agenda this evening?
Mr. Mayor, if I could, I'd like to add just an update at the end, so I guess it would be 9B, and that's an update related to the Amazon project. It's just a verbal update.
Thank you. Anything from council? All right, entertain a motion to approve the agenda as amended.
So move.
Councilor Whiting, do we have a second?
I'll second.
Second by Councilor Mokel. Any discussion?
We had a little flexibility for item number 4 in case that person shows up.
Yes, we were just going to float that one until if it works or not. So thank you. Any other discussion? Seeing none, all is in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Passes unanimously. Item number 5, consent business. Anything to remove or add to consent this evening? Councilor Lehman,
Move the consent agenda as presented.
do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Councilor Mokel. Ms. Wilson, could you please read the consent business?
Yes, Mr. Mayor. Item 5A approves the payment of bills and electronic transfers in the amount of $1,035,717.58. 5B authorizes staff to enter into contract with Kruger Excavating, Inc. for the Thrush Street Drainage Improvement Project in the amount of $41,290 and approves a 10% contingency for this project for use by the city engineer. 5C approves a suspension of City Code Section 10.60 Noise Elimination and Noise Prevention Subdivision 3 hourly restrictions on certain operations, allowing continuous construction work 24 hours per day on Rar Malting's Malt House number 6, starting July 6th for 2.5 weeks and from August 24th to September 5th. And to direct staff to publish notice of the suspension with the conditions as recommended. 5C also approves a lane closure on 3rd Avenue, contingent upon the appropriate traffic control signage and detour as approved by the Public Works Director. 5D authorizes staff to enter into a contract with Pipe Services Corporation for the televised inspection of 100,000 feet of sanitary sewer main at a cost of 38 cents per linear foot to be paid from the Sanitary Sewer Fund. 5E adopts a proclamation proclaiming May as Bike Month and Friday, May 15th as Bike to Work Day in Shakopee. 5F declares four forfeited vehicles held by the police department as surplus property and authorizes proper sale or disposal of these vehicles. And 5G authorizes the closure of Lewis Street from 1st to 3rd Avenues from 6 to 9 p.m. on June 12th, June 26th, July 10th, July 24th, August 7th, and August 21st, 2015 for the Downtown Shakopee Classic Car Cruise.
Thank you very much. Great job. Any discussion on those items? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Passes unanimously. Item number 6, recognition of involved citizens by City Council. This is time when anybody who is here tonight can address City Council for up to 5 minutes if they would like for an item that is not on the agenda. Looks like everybody's here for something except for that guy. He's just hanging out. All right. Seeing none, we're going to move on to item number 7. Business removed consent agenda. We have none this evening. Item number 8A, Scott County presentation on proposed sales tax for transportation and transit. So welcome, folks, from Scott County being here this evening to discuss proposed sales tax for transportation and transit. Ms. Marshall.
Is this the correct one?
Yep, that's for you.
Good evening, Mayor, members of the council. I'm Barbara Marshall. I'm Vice Chair of the County Board this year, Scott County. With me tonight, we're tag teaming on a presentation to you.
Let's see if we are actually. Can you guys hear me when? Can you hear this? Barb, can you just hold the mic closer?
They're not on.
Yeah.
It's on back there.
Okay,
Perfect.
we'll start over.
Thank you.
Good evening, Mayor and members of the council. I'm Barbara Marshall. I am Vice Chair of the County Board this year. And with me tonight, we are tag teaming on a presentation to you as Commissioner Mike Beard We also have County Administrator Gary Shelton and Lisa Fries, who is our Transportation Director, here for questions or comments if you have any. And we want to answer all your questions, make sure that there's a good understanding of what we're presenting tonight. We also want to thank you for the opportunity to talk with you tonight about the transportation sales tax that the County Board is considering at our May 12th meeting. We've been out in the communities trying to talk to various city councils, town boards, and the citizens about what is the impact and what is this tax really all about. One of the core responsibilities of government, as you know, is to build roads that allow the traveling public to reach their destinations as quickly and as safely as possible. And when our county considers road projects, we have three main goals in mind: congestion relief, safety enhancement, and economic development. And when we achieve the first two goals, economic development will follow. Our county does not have an adequate funding source for our transportation future needs. So we have two choices before us. We can increase the property tax levy to cover our transportation needs, or we can adopt a transportation sales tax to help pay for the future transportation needs of the county. At this time, I'm going to turn the presentation for a lot of the details and the facts that we've gathered over to Commissioner Beard to talk about the proposed tax and the recent activity at the state legislature which requires our attention to this matter. So, Mike?
Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Marshall, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. It's good to be in front of you again tonight to talk a little bit about this project, which has been going on for a little over a year now. I'm going to give you a background first. I think if I do this. There we go. Let's use the arrow keys. It says it was made available through the 2013 legislation. Yes, but there's a little backstory to that I'm going to give you. And it started in the veto override of 2008. Whenever the people who wrote that mega honkin' transportation bill, it included a 1.5% tax increase in the entire 7-county metro area, 0.25% for roads, 0.25% for transit purposes. Only the 7-county metro area were subject to this. In an attempt to find enough votes for the veto override, the Speaker of the House jettisoned the road portion of the tax and kept the 0.25% sales tax, and then made it voluntary on those counties that decided to join CTIP, the County Transit Investment Board, which is charged primarily with building train lines throughout the Twin Cities, although they do have the flexibility to build bus rapid transit as well. Indeed, have built one in along Cedar Avenue. At that time, the other 80 counties in the state said, hey, what's in this for us? We're going to get a little gas tax increase, we're going to get some bridge money, but you guys get all the fun down there in the metro area, you get all the money for transit and at that time roads. So there was a statute, 297A, as you see on the sheet here, that was amended because counties had, with legislative approval, they could levy up to 0.5% on their local sales tax via a referendum of the citizens for certain specific projects. Olmsted County, for instance, has done some street projects and built a civic center. Mankato built an airport with theirs. So what the legislature did in 2008 was quietly removed the referendum portion and said that the county boards, by resolution, could create a transportation tax for the purposes of building roads and bridges, and that had to be specific to a certain list of projects. You couldn't just levy it. You couldn't supplant your maintenance money for one thing, and you had to pick a list of projects, had to have a specific lifespan, and it had to expire when the projects were paid for. That came through the 2008 legislation. In 2013, Senator Roebling and I, actually we started it in 2012, we looked at that and thought, you know, Scott and Carver County, because we did not join CTIB, we're not subject to the 0.25% sales tax. We also don't have the 0.5-cent sales tax available to us. And at that time, that was the first big approach that the urban counties were making about forcing Scott and Carver County into CTIB, levying up to a 1% sales tax and taking all of our money and pretty much giving it to the County Transit Investment Board to build train lines from Minneapolis to everywhere except Scott and Carver County. And so we quietly arranged for a little
tweak to the language that defined counties not in the metropolitan transit service area as those counties that were not members of CTIP. That would be Scott and Carver County. So now we fall under this 297A.993 statute, which says that we can indeed levy up to 0.5% without a referendum by a resolution of the board if we establish a list of projects and a timeline. That's how it became available to us. And again, this year, the legislature is threatening to assault Scott and Carver County with levying a transit tax, which all of it will go across the river to our friends at the Met Council or CTIB. We will get nothing or virtually nothing. Fortunately, this year, at the moment, the amended language does not force us into CTIB, it just takes our money. However, there is a provision in the bill as it stands at this moment in conference committee that if we levy ourselves a 0.5 cent tax and use it for roads and bridges, that portion would be exempted from any tax increase they might levy for 0.75%, 1%, or whatever they end up in coming out of conference committee. At some point, you may ask the question about the probability of that, and I want to have you just keep this slide in mind right here, that one. Questions. Be thinking of good questions, because I'm going to be there in just about 3 slides, and we'll be able to respond to your Q&A, probably be able to talk about things that are really relevant in your mind and so on. Anyhow, the nuts and bolts about this sales tax that passed by resolution of the county board without a referendum are that it has to have a sunset, it has to have specific projects that are funded with this. It is a sales tax on retail sales on things that are taxed now, so that would not be extended to clothing, food, or medicine or medical care. That's off the table. It also does not apply to the sale of motor vehicles. It's at 6.5% now, remains there. However, there's an additional $20 excise tax on the sale or exchange of a new or used vehicle. That also goes into this fund to pay for roads, the road and bridge projects. It's specific to transportation projects, although in 2013, when we slipped in the little tweak, making Scott and Carver eligible to be a transportation county that could levy this, they also extended the people who were looking for more transit funding also enabled transit operations to come out of this if county board so chooses. The good news is 100% of this revenue is controlled by us right here in Scott County. It is applied to our projects. A 0.5 cent sales tax in Scott County generates about $6 million a year at the moment. That'll be more as the economy grows. It sunsets upon the completion of identified projects. Non-CTIB counties are eligible, and at this moment we are not in CTIB. Why sales tax? This current legislation includes Scott and Carver County. The current transportation levy, the discussion at the Capitol is to levy 0.75%. Some are pushing for a 1% increase that will go into the region. If we do this, we keep the money here, we control it. We're not forced into that. That's what that point means. About 22% of our sales tax in the county now comes from our 3 entertainment venues, Canterbury, Mystic, and the other one, Canterbury Valley Fair. Mystic Lake has indicated that they will participate with us and will remit their share, but that's a call for their board to make. I want to be very clear. We cannot mandate that they do that, but they've indicated that if we levy the tax, they will participate in collecting it and remitting it to us. It generates about $6 million a year, as I mentioned, for projects that are not currently in our transportation improvement plan. It does not supplant our $4 million a year maintenance budget, which we levy for on the property tax now. These are projects that are out on the 7 to 20 year plan. We're going to accelerate those, and there are some other projects that MnDOT is coming along and saying they're ready to go on. We'll talk about those in a moment. The important point is this: none of this money comes from the property tax increase. So you won't lose your house because we are rebuilding 169 and 41. We're not going to increase your property taxes because we're putting new bridges in Interstate 35 or because we're 4-laning Highway 17 or County Road 17. Philosophically, I think the property tax should be used for core functions of government like police and fire, things that make living possible in our homes, that protect our homes and makes homes possible. They give private property value, like local city streets. They give us an address. They give us access to the county and state highway system. That's a good thing. To use property taxes to build interregional corridors of significance or principal arterials that everybody drives on, that's a reach. I'd hate to think that somebody's going to lose their home because we're 4-laning County Road 17. You follow me? Making it a consumption tax that's paid voluntarily, one that if you have more money and buy more stuff, you pay more, that seems to be a more prudent way to tax to build out this infrastructure than to levy it on people living on fixed incomes on their farms and on their homes in town. That's the point of why we think the sales tax is probably the wisest tool we have at the moment if we're going to accelerate our build out of principal arterials and some of the highway infrastructure we need to catch up on. Again, this slide summarizes some of the points I've made. It keeps the funding here under local control. It minimizes the impact on local taxpayers, on their property taxes. We will not have to increase the levy. An example would be, for instance, 169 and 41. We've been notified now by MnDOT that that's number one on their project list. We're beginning to identify money to pay for that project. That project's probably going to be 40 million plus, 35 to 40. Plus, this is just an aside, an observation. There's a lot of frontage and backage roads that have to be built between here and by the yard, down towards Jordan. That's probably where our next commercial and industrial property is going to be. We're about built out in the park out here. As we extend down the 169 corridor, we have to close access points on 169 because that will become a freeway, a limited access freeway. We need to build out the infrastructure so that people can get to the businesses on either side, and it opens up and makes valuable then the land that's laying there fallow now or being used for ag purposes that will someday become new office and industrial parks. That's for our kids. Somehow I think this very conversation was being had 40 years ago by the Eagle Crown Township supervisors. We're having it now. That's why we're thinking about this tax. So we can pick up our local share, which will be about 20 or 25% of that project, and we can pick up the local infrastructure that needs to be built, the frontage roads, the backage roads, and so on, to make 41 and 169 work as we build down towards Jordan. These other bullet points are sort of the same, buttressing the same point. We improve intersections all across the county. We are going to expand some capacity where we're constrained right now with some congestion, some places where it's actually unsafe. Grade separations in frontage roads, particularly as we get down towards County Road 14 and up along 13 by the old Menards and Savage. We've got some work to do there in preparation for another interchange that's not even in our CIP yet, even in the long-range plan. But these things are coming. Folks, this is what this tax is going to be used for. We're going to accelerate some build-out. We're going to keep Scott County on the cutting edge when it comes to transportation infrastructure, when it comes to setting the table as you annex and as you develop the Nest Industrial Park. We'll have the highway infrastructure and the frontage road infrastructure to support the work you're trying to do. This is a map. I hesitate to show it to you because every time I've shown it, people go, oh, look, there's 1 to 13. How comes our project is number 3 or number 6? These are not ranked. Somebody just started in the lower left corner and numbered them going clockwise around the county. Of course, number 1 is a overpass to help tie together Belle Plaine. That's not necessarily our number 1 project, but they have done all the spade work and they're pretty much ready to go. Contrast that with number 2, which is a corridor preservation for a cross-county highway that's in the plans for County Road 8. Currently, those are farm fields. That may or may not happen within the next 3 or 4 years. It might be 10 years, but we need to set aside the engineering and the platting to make sure that County Road 8, which is an important part of our future plans for our kids and grandkids, is preserved. Consequently, you'll see numbers 12 and 13. That's over around Elko New Market, where they've got a new sewer interceptor, they've got new water systems, they've got an industrial park that they're trying to plant and grow, and they have an inferior diamond interchange on a bridge built in 1961, I think. That needs to be upgraded, but whenever a company that, I think we can name it, I heard somebody name it here tonight. When they were looking at Elko New Market, one of the drawbacks was, how long will it take you to replace this interchange? A couple, 3 years. Well, that doesn't help Elko New Market. We don't want to be in that position again when it happens next year or the year after. So these projects are ones we've identified as being possibilities to pay for with this project, but what we're proposing is a 7-year sunset on a half-cent sales tax. That'll raise about $42 million for these projects in some fashion. And as MnDOT is ready to move ahead with them, whether it's 282 and 169, 41 and 169, whether Savage and the county come together on 42 and 13 over by my house, We'll pull the projects off the shelf as they're ready to go, and we'll be ready with the county's portion of the funding so we can step right up and move the projects along. At the end of 7 years, the projects that are paid for and in the pipeline will be the ones we'll have identified, and at 7 years, a future county commission's going to have to decide whether we've had enough, whether to diminish the levy, or whether to just extend it. That'll be a call for a future county commission. Members, that's the brief overview of what we're doing. There was a public hearing in April a year ago. There were about 40 comments, I believe, that were received, if I'm not mistaken. At the public hearing.
But there's been hundreds total.
Okay, thank you. There have been hundreds total. I'll say it again for the mic because we are being recorded and broadcast live. There have been hundreds total. We're revisiting it this spring. I'll admit to you that the legislature's saber rattling, it's more than that, actually. This is the second run at this, and they've gone further this time than they did 3 years ago and 2 years ago when I was there. They actually have it in a bill, excuse me, and the governor has not insisted that it come out. 2 and 3 years ago, they tried to run it in a bill, and at that time, the governor said back off. But this time, it's in. And so it's up to the House Republicans, if I can say that word in this council, to say, we don't think so, or trade it for something else, or you don't even want to know how these things work. But conference committees started meeting yesterday. They had a second meeting today. So far, they've gone through 6 pages and agreed on 5 things. There's still 100 and some pages to go, and this is still there, in play, rolling around on the deck. It's a grenade. The pin's still in it, if I can use that analogy. But it's a very real threat. And if it's not this year, it'll be up again in 2 years when a new legislature is impaneled, and we're going to continue to fight this fight and pay attention to this. I think that's enough of me telling you what we're doing, why we're doing it, and what it's going to mean for the economic impact on the county. Again, we're going to keep it off the property tax levy. We're going to make it so that about 30% of the tax is paid by people who come and enjoy recreating and buying things in our county. And again, it will not extend the tax to anything that's not currently taxed with a sales tax, and it does not apply to the transfer or sale of automobiles. Mr. Mayor, with that, I'm happy to stand for questions, and I brought expert witnesses. If I'm stumped, we'll call them to the microphone.
Thank you very much, sir. Who has questions? Councilor Lehman.
3 questions. First one is, you stated the current tax is 6.5%. I've been charging 6.875 for a while now, so.
Mr. Mayor, on automobiles, the 3/8 of
on automobiles?
Yeah, the 3/8% that was passed on the constitutional levy for trails and wildlife and arts and crafts and so on. I don't believe that extends to motor vehicles. It may, but I don't think it does. I think that we specifically exempted them because of a constitutional question regarding the motor vehicle sales tax being constitutionally dedicated to transportation purposes.
Okay, but the regular tax is 6.875.
Yes, correct.
Okay,
That is correct
so
statement.
it'd be 0.5% on top of that.
Correct.
Okay?
Yes.
Next, that leads to the next question. The state hired me without paying me to administer their taxes for them.
Mm-hmm.
Will I be administering the counties, or will it be part of the states and then turn back to the county?
It goes to the state, and the state remits it to us quarterly.
Okay?
Allow me just to elaborate a little bit. If this was to pass on Tuesday, we would certify that to the Department of Revenue June 1st, and the tax would begin being collected October 1st, and our first check would be remitted then in early 2016.
So businesses would change it on what they're charging by
October 1st.
just changing that number in there, and it would still go to the state
Yes.
when they pay their sales tax, and then the state would send back the difference.
Yes, that's
Okay?
correct.
And then, what surrounding counties currently don't have this and aren't contemplating doing this? Carver County was one of them.
Carver does not have it. Carver's the only other one that fit in the little exemption that Senator Roebling and Representative Beard put into play 2 years ago. They're observing us, but I don't know that they have any move afoot to even consider it. Rice County put it into play last year already. Dakota County already has the quarter. They're trying to get legislative authority to add the half on top of their quarter because they're falling behind on their build out too. They're also a rapidly growing suburban county. I don't know of any others that have it teed up to run with just yet, although there are 19 counties not in the metro area that have levied under this authority the 0.5 cent sales tax for their road projects.
what's the likelihood of a lot of our patronage going to Carver County to get away from the sales tax?
And miss a chance to do business with you, probably zero. Speaking personally, Mr. Lehman,
Well, in some of our-
seriously, here's what it means. On a $100 sale, it means an additional 50 cents. So if you're buying a $10,000 television set, perhaps. But if you're stopping at McDonald's or, take your pick,
Right.
buying a book at the used bookstore, for a couple pennies, you're probably not going to make that trip. On $100, it's a 50-cent additional charge, and I don't think that's going to sway much business.
Last question, does the state, even if the county did this, the state could still change legislation and still allow them to charge the full 1%, even not removing the 0.5%? Or is the legislation passed, or existing legislation written to where if the county does this by a certain time, they can't come
Yes.
back and do that?
The way it's written this year in this bill that's in conference committee now, if we've passed this we've passed this resolution by the time they adjourn on the 18th, they will not double tax us. They'll let us keep our half and they'll add the extra quarter or whatever it is if they do that. Now, that's this legislature and that's our commitment from this chairman, these two chairmen. Future legislatures could be really nasty and do whatever they want. This isn't total protection, but I can't anticipate them actually taking that step. Politically, it would be messy and hugely unpopular. So, but it's possible. Legislature can do pretty much whatever it wants.
Councilor Whiting.
You know, I had the opportunity to hear this presentation in the past, and I think what was brought up one time is you have this list of projects, and 13 projects plus transit, but you have the opportunity to add more. Is that correct? If you choose that, see that you need that in your.
That's a gray area. The law is pretty specific. You have to identify projects that are subject to the resolution
Okay.
whenever you pass the resolution, which is why we have this inclusive list, kind of an overreaching list. So they're on the list. But I'm going to look to my expert panel of witnesses and phone a friend. Mr. Shelton, would you like to elaborate?
Mr. Mayor, Councilmember Whiting, the county board could add projects, and they could extend it past the 7 years at any time. They could also stop it at any time. Stopping it is easy. That just takes a resolution saying it's done. To add a project or to extend it would require them to go through the same process they're going through now. They would have to hold a new public hearing. They would have to pass a new resolution implementing the tax and including the other projects. It's part of why the May 12th hearing is actually set up as an additional public hearing, because the list that you have in front of you is not exactly the same list that was at the first public hearing. And so in order to make sure we're covering all the bases and proceeding appropriately, the two projects that were added after the fact will be heard again at another public hearing on May 12th. So the answer to your question is they could, but they have to go through exactly the same process that they're going through now in order to do that.
Thank you, Mr. Shelton. Mr. Mayor, if I may, you talked about, and it's kind of not listed as a number, but it's on your list, is the transit operation and capital. Of the $6 million per year, what percentage do you believe would be taken for transit?
I believe we've penciled in 900,000 a year, or is it $1 million?
It would be, right
In.
now it's, in the resolution they're considering, it's $1 million a year. For the capital portion, the law is the same as it is for highway projects. So the first 900,000 of that million in the first year is actually penciled in for the purchase of some buses that would end up, I believe, going to MVTA for some anticipated future service. And that has to actually be identified as a capital project that they intend to pay for. After that, the $1 million is actually scheduled for operations, but that money is more flexible. That operations can be used as they would see fit from year to year, similar to what a levy can.
Okay, thank you.
Councilor Lehman.
Question to follow up on what Councilor Whiting asked. If they add a project to this at a future date and then go through the process again, would they be adding an additional tax layer, or would it be part of the original 0.5%?
As I understand it, Mr. Mayor and Commissioner, Councilor Lehman, the public hearing would have to add the new project, and it could either come out of the existing levy, or we'd probably have to extend it to account for the money being spent for the new project that went through the public
So
hearing
longer
process.
term?
So we'd extend the term. Yeah, 1/2 is the maximum legal amount we can levy. We can levy it in 1/8 increments up to 1/2, by the way, too, just, oh, by the way.
Other questions? Councilor Luce?
I don't have a question, I just have a comment. Who do we trust more, Met Council or your board?
I'll take it as a rhetorical question, but I hope the answer is B. I hope
You
it's
get a
us.
quarter out and flip it.
And Mr. Mayor, really, this is part of the discussion we have going on. Over the last several years, it's become clear that there is a philosophical sea change at Met Council, it appears, beginning with the Metropolitan System Highway Improvement Plan of, 7 or 8 years ago, Lisa, when Met Council and the Metropolitan District of MnDOT surveyed all the stuff, dropped out the interregional corridors. We lost some lines on the map that used to be in Scott and Carver counties, and it seemed that the emphasis was turned inward to inside the 494 Beltway, to the 2040 plan, where they've changed some of the scoring criteria for dollars that come for projects and added things like environmental equity and social justice issues in part of the scoring. It seems that there's a new emphasis that does not, it tips the scale away from suburban and exurban projects. That's what it appears to us. Perhaps after we have a little more experience, we can come back and speak a little more forcefully about that. Being able to control our own destiny is a very large issue with us, and we will not have to go on bended knee to the Met Council to ask for permission to spend this money. It's ours. We get to pick the projects. We get to cooperate with MnDOT, the Federal Highway Administration. We get to line up the projects that we think are important to the future of Scott County, the 169 corridor, and the neighbors that come and do business with us here in Scott County. It's another reason this is a very important issue.
Could you go back to the map on,
Yes.
please?
There we go.
All right, so when we look at this map, there's significant number of the projects are south of Shakopee, outside of our local area. So most of our residents either commute north and or take 41, and so a majority of the use of this sales tax will come in items 4 and 8, and a significant portion of the sales tax will be generated within Shakopee. So what in this sales tax do Shakopee residents and businesses, what do we get out of this? I mean, what is a purely local improvements that we get to see for everyone's work that's happening here?
At this very moment, if you drive south on 17, two of the projects include grade separations at 14 and 82? 14 and 282. 14 and 282. Those are major issues that we're going to benefit anybody on the south side of Shakopee moving north and south. The 41-169, again, I'm going to hark back to people whose shoulders we're standing on, the former Eagle Creek Township Board. When they laid out the whole industrial park there, you people are in a position to do the same thing going southwest along 169. The 41-169 interchange, that's your interchange. It helps set the stage for the new industrial and commercial property that will be developing going that way. The other one is number 8. We're going back and forth on this one, but you remember a couple years ago whenever we prevailed on the Federal Highway Administration to restripe the ferry bridge? And they were convinced the wings were going to fall off if we did it. Well, guess what? They didn't. In fact, even with the 101 and 41 bridge shut down, congestion was actually less with all the extra traffic just by adding the one extra lane. And so the second time they were very quick to pull the trigger on it. We actually now have them, we're stirring the pot with MnDOT Metro about, okay, how do we make this permanent? And that, number 8, that's part of that deal. That benefits everybody in the Southwest Metro, but most of my neighbors in particular that sit in line on County Road 21 starting at about 6:30 in the morning for an hour. For instance, those are some for instances you're looking for.
Perfect. That's exactly what I need. Thank you. Mr. Loney?
This is a quick question.
Sure.
Do you have a total dollar amount of all 13 projects? Because I don't believe your
No,
$42 million is going to cover it all.
no, the 42 million will not cover all of them. The 42 million may not even cover our 20% share if MnDOT was to participate fully in all of these. Lisa, do we have a number on what all these would cost if we actually built them all out? I don't think we do we?
We do not, because actually the projects are not all scoped yet.
Yeah.
Lisa,
Yes, come to the
it's
microphone.
not your first
First
rodeo
time, huh?
here.
We'll let our engineer talk to your engineer.
The projects that are on this list, some of them are still at very much concept stage, and so they're not scoped out, so we really don't have a dollar amount for them. But I can tell you of the ones that we know, and we've added up, that they're, you know, depending on what our share is, they could be well over that 30 to 40 million dollars. And so I think as we get further along with these projects and start working with MnDOT, the idea is that we can come with our share to the table when MnDOT's ready to do these projects.
Councilor Lehman.
Does, this is my perception, and it could be wrong, but a lot of these projects are bigger projects, I guess you would say, bridges and stuff like that, interchanges.
What projects? I'm sorry, I missed that word.
Most of them that I'm looking at are larger projects.
yeah, they are,
Expensive
yes.
interchanges, grade separations, things like that. And the benefit, I guess, to the Shakopee residents, and I'm just gonna verify this, is somewhere in your capital improvement plan, you plan on fixing Marshall Road, you know,
Good point.
whatever, put a top on it or whatever. That doesn't go away. Your regular capital type of work still sticks around. It's just that these long-term big projects have some kind of dedicated funding source, so you're not dipping out of your scheduled capital plan for maintenance and putting things off.
Councilor Lehman, that's an excellent point. Thank you for raising it. We levy about $4 million a year for maintenance. That's guardrails, repaving, new paints and things like that. That comes off the property tax levy. That won't go away. Hopefully we won't increase it. That we could work with that, but that's maintenance dollars. This does not supplant that. We also, through the county state aid formula, get about $6 million a year that goes for things like widening Marshall Road, or the things that are already in our existing capital improvement plan or transportation improvement plan, we call it the TIP, which runs for 5 years or 7 years?
10 years.
10 years, longer than I thought. Those things will not change. We'll continue to do that plan, which is on a pretty steady, almost flat increase. This allows us to add new stuff and to ramp up. Instead of waiting 20 years, for instance, for the new bridge at 35 and 2, we can do that whenever we're ready to. If we had to do the 41 and 169 in our current scenario with our $6 million a year from CASA money and our $4 million on the levy, we would have to increase the levy, and we would have to bump some other projects that are already in the 10-year plan just to meet our obligation on the 41-169 project. So some of the other things that aren't marked on this map, because they're already in the 10-year construction plan, would go away or would be bumped out into the future. The sales tax prevents that from happening and allows us to accelerate some of the important projects that we need to catch up with.
So the Shakopee folks, we can look for a more consistent transportation improvement plan
Yes.
implementation.
That is a fair statement, yes.
Okay.
Exactly. An accurate, fair statement.
All right, further questions. What would you like from us tonight? Would you like any direction, action? How can we help?
First of all, we want to thank you again for your time. Excellent questions. I just want to make one comment. When people say to me, what would I get out of this? I guess my first answer is, if you're commuting on a regular basis or even somewhat regular basis and you're traveling on these roads, it's probably going to take some time off of your commute. And that's what I hear from people who the 5 and 13 interchange that went in a year or two ago, people have said it takes 20 minutes off of my commute every day. So that's always a benefit, time saved. And I think people who drive realize that. So, Mr. Mayor, and to answer your question, if you agree with the information that we have given you tonight and you see the value in this resolution, as a council, if you would be willing to send a letter of support indicating that or any comments on the presentation or the sales tax itself. If you would send that to the county board as your level of interest and support, that's what we are asking for tonight.
Thank you.
Very-
What would everyone like to do? Would you like to send a letter? Would you like to have a resolution?
vote and send a letter.
Okay, Councilor Whiting.
Yeah, I agree. I think this is always hard to add a tax. I think the lion's share of this tax is going to be coming from Shakopee residents, a higher percentage anyway. But the benefits, even, we talked about number 8, the 169 Bloomington Ferry Bridge improvements. That alone, I think, is a great benefit for business in Shakopee. And so with that, I would offer motion to direct staff to send a letter of support along with any suggestions or comments on this project.
Do we have a second?
I will second that, and I will also add it's also bringing our workers here and
Yeah.
out.
Both ways.
Very good. So motion by Councilor Whiting, second by Councilor Mokel. Discussion. I do have one further question before we move off this topic. I know the comment period for the projects has ended, but what would it take to get 83 between 101 and 169 on here?
Another
I think
public
we'd have
hearing.
to start with
Well,
the
no, they're
process.
having another public hearing. I mean, can we just tack it on the list, and if that way you don't have to have a public hearing in the future, or how does that happen?
Yeah, I would say, Mr. Mayor, at this point, it would be probably difficult to do that because we have solicited from all sorts of folks, every township, every city, and citizens, what projects, put together what we think can't make it into funding scenarios now. And there are other sources of funding that should come forward for that projects as they need to move forward. So I think it would be difficult.
Okay.
At this particular point, because we really would have to go back to everybody else that we've talked to and say, oh, now we want to give you a different map.
We've got a
That
couple
question has
days,
come
right?
up in every single presentation, though, as to how could we get one more project on there? If the time comes and there's no way to do 83, then quite honestly, the board could go through and add that project, but I wouldn't anticipate that that will be necessary.
Okay. That's the question. All right. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all's in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed?
I
Passes 4-1 with Councilor Lehman in dissent.
totally
Thank
agree
you very
with-
much.
Agree with what you're doing. Just
Mr. Mayor and council, we appreciate it very much. Thank you.
trust the state.
Thank you very much.
Well, thanks for coming back.
All right, item 8B, requested rate increase for refuse and recycling service. Ms. Wilson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This agenda item had a set of proposed refuse and recycling collection rates in your packet, and there is a corrected version that was emailed to you yesterday and is on the table this evening. So we want to make sure that we're looking at the one that says corrected. The city currently contracts with Republic Services for the collection of garbage and recycling from residential properties in the municipal service area. That contract has been in place for just about a year now. And the way the contract is written, it allows for an annual price adjustment, and it sets up how that should be structured and that it needs to be tied to the consumer price index published by the Minneapolis Federal Reserve. So at this time, that index is 1.2%. So what you see in front of you reflects a 1.2% increase in the collection fees. We have a collection fee for trash and a collection fee for recyclables. In the middle, you have the disposal fee, and that's a fee that depends on what size container you have selected. Under the assumption that the larger the container, the more they are disposing of. That increase is not calculated by the CPI. It's based on the rate that Republic pays to DEMCON when they go to dispose of the trash that they collected. So the rate increases are very modest. I've done a sample impact on the bottom using someone that has weekly trash pickup and a 60-gallon container. they will see an increase of 15 cents per month, or $1.82 for the calendar year if you approve this item. So, Mr. Rich Herstein from Republic Services is here if you have additional questions about the rate increase. I should note he will be back in front of you in 4 weeks at your first meeting in June with an overall annual report about how the service is going and issues that have come up and that type of thing. So the primary focus for this evening is the requested rate increase. The rates in the current contract expire at the end of this month. So if we're going to approve a change effective June 1, it's an action that is brought forward for you tonight.
Questions? Councilor Luce.
I question the whole rate increase. I've checked on fuel costs and they've dropped dramatically from last year. So why would you need a rate increase when you're saving that much on your fuel?
Good evening, everyone. First off, Mr. Luce, there's a lot more elements in the pricing than just our fuel. And so that's why they use an indicator. In this particular circumstance, they use the Federal Reserve Consumer Price Index out of Minneapolis, so it's a local indicator that reflects the marketplace that we live in here. And that was determined by the city in the RFP process, and we agreed to that. Most oftentimes we use the Bureau of Labor Statistics for the United States federal government, but we agreed to the local Federal Reserve number because it is in Minneapolis and it better reflects our market. And it's 1.2%. I think it's on average less than 10 cents or something to that effect.
Councilor Lehman.
2 questions. Is this service subject to the county's tax if they adopt it?
There is no tax from the county in Scott County.
Well,
A sales tax.
yeah, sales tax.
No. Nope, there's a solid waste management tax from the state.
Yep.
And then in some counties in the metro area, like 5 of them, they also add on a county tax for the waste. But Scott's not one of them, Carver's not one of them, and Anoka County is not one of them.
Good
that
thing
adds
they
that on.
left.
Well, if Scott County
Pardon me?
passes
Good
their
thi- good thing
transit
they
tax,
left.
will that apply to this?
Pardon me, I'm
If
sorry.
Scott County,
no sales
okay.
tax on this.
No, there isn't, no.
Second question is probably for staff, but if we don't increase this, would we be in violation of our contract?
Mr. Mayor, members of council, the RFP that was issued did contain the provision that said they will be entitled to a CPI adjuster at the end of each year. In my opinion, and that provision was carried forward into the contract. The contract incorporated the RFP, which incorporated that provision, which is a more favorable provision to the city than using the national CPI one, which would have been higher than this one. So the answer to your question is yes, I believe the contract requires the city to approve this because that was part of the deal that we had at that time.
Okay.
So do we even need to vote on it?
Well, Mr. Mayor, at the time the RFP was, the staff report, the request for council action was prepared, we were still discussing this issue. And I've advised Ms. Wilson since then that this type of increase doesn't need to come to the council because you're not changing the terms of the contract, you're implementing the terms of the contract.
Right.
If they come with a discretionary increase, that'd be a different issue.
Okay.
Well, Mayor, and I think the issue at hand was that the information that we had in our packet was updated by the information on the table.
That's correct.
So basically it's before us so that we're all on the same page with the updated information.
I do have one question on this, Rich. So the last item on here, the additional cart cost,
Yeah.
what is that one? Since we paid for the carts and we're getting paid
Yeah, if you have 2 carts, for instance, for garbage, you'd have twice as.
additional cart.
Yeah.
Got it.
Yep.
Okay, perfect. So do we need to take this action or do we just move on?
Mr. Mayor, no, I think you can just, now, knowing what we know now, you can just treat it as an informational item and no action would be needed.
All right, perfect. Everybody okay with that?
Good.
Thank you very much, sir, for
Thanks,
being
back.
here.
Thank you. I'll be back in early June and have the questions for me. Fire
See you
away.
next month.
Wonderful. We'll see you in a month.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Okay.
sir.
Thank you.
All right, moving on to item number 8C, potential land acquisition for park purposes. Ms. Wilson.
I think Ms. Paul and I will tag team this one, if you don't mind. I have a little color-coded map for you up here. The large area of pink parcels in the middle of the map are all multifamily housing areas of the community. So we have a significant concentration of apartment buildings and fourplexes and things like that in this area of the community, which is the intersection of Marshall Road, and this is Gorman Street, and this is Eagle Creek Boulevard, just to orient things. And it was been brought to our attention that these two parcels in red, which currently contain small single-family houses, are currently for sale and being marketed together for sale together, even though they are two separate legal parcels. It was suggested that the city might consider acquisition of those parcels to provide a small neighborhood park in this area. And so we've labeled on the map the closest city parks. You've got Prairie Bend Park up here, Scenic Park, Heights Park down here, and Hiawatha Park over there. Ms. Pauley took this before the Park and Rec Advisory Board, and I'm going to let her tell you what they said.
Thank you, Chris. Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of council. I did take this to the Parks and Recreation Advisory Board at their April meeting, and they felt that with the high density of families in this area and the large amount of children, that if we have the opportunity to at least look at it, we should take that opportunity. So they made that recommendation to the city council that we should at least look into it, not necessarily purchase it or anything, because they do see that there could be potential costs with taking down those homes that are there. There might be issues with it being right along Marshall Road and what that would require as far as what the development would be. But they did look at the availability of other playgrounds, and because, like Ms. Wilson said, there is no direct route both to Pearson School and Hiawatha. The kids are walking to get to these two. They're walking up Marshall Road and then through. They're not walking through, smaller neighborhoods to get to park. Typically, we like to have a park within a half mile of every resident, and Pearson is a school facility within a half mile of them. By going to streets, then Hiawatha becomes 3/4 of a mile for those students, so it's outside, or those kids, so it's outside of that half mile. I was also able to talk with planning today to determine why a playground may have never been built in this area with these apartment buildings. And we did find that the majority of these apartment buildings are built on unplatted property, so they were done before the platting process was required or was not done at that time.
There was a railroad track that went right next to that property.
That could be part of it too. Those parcels are fairly old. The two that were platted though recently, or in 1997, we had Garden Villa, which I'm not exactly sure which one is which, but it's this actually right here. I do know that. Garden Villa is this. It was platted with the Garden Lane Estates. The Garden Villa had paid park dedication back in 1975, but we don't have an exact amount of what they paid for those. But Garden Lane was platted, this building right here was platted in 2001 and did pay $72,000 in park dedication. That was $1,500 per unit. At that time, it's 48 units. Then the one just prior to that was this building across the road. What was interesting about this was done in 1999, and they paid $2,595 per lot. There's 2 lots, so they ended up paying only $5,190 in park dedication instead of paying per unit. There's no real record as to why it was per lot, not per unit, or if it was a mistake on the part of that resolution. But so in this area, 2 developments paid about $77,000 in park dedication when they were platted, but at that point, no playground was required to be installed or did not get installed in place of the park dedication fees. So the park board is just recommending that the city council possibly look at what it might take to provide a park for this area of the city that currently does not have one.
Questions? Councilor Luce.
I got a couple of negatives on this one. Crossing 17 for some of those properties is extremely dangerous. You know, you put little kids on that street, they're not gonna not gonna go at the crossing, they're gonna go wherever they can. The other part is, you know, it's right on 17. You'd have to put some kind of fencing up to keep the kids away from the street. Balls go out in 17 and a kid chases it. That's gonna be a tragedy. The other one, when they go up to Pearson School, they're not using the sidewalks. They're cutting through the parking lots, which is a lot closer. It's a lot shorter distance.
Yeah, they're cutting through private property, probably.
I have a comment on that because just driving on Marshall Road, they're crossing now. They're not, it's in the middle of the street and not at walks, so, I mean, I understand where you're coming from, Counselor Luce, but it's already happening. Now it's just a place for them to at least gather.
And I have that major issue with county roads through the city that all are 4 or 5 lanes, and there's no way to get across them. Like if you think of 17th by Saks, it's ridiculous. That's one of my big issues with all that. So I don't know if that's a negative. Ms. Wilson.
I was just gonna add, I don't think anyone would argue that this would have been our first choice for a park parcel. If we were doing a new plat, we would certainly make it more interior to the neighborhood and not right out on a county road. But this is kind of the development that's gone up and the situation that we have on the ground. And so the question is, do you want to take advantage of this opportunity? The requested action in front of you is simply that you direct Ms. Polly and I to retain a real estate agent to, start some conversations about what we could get the land for. And we would come back to you in closed session and have a more serious conversation about what the city might be willing to pay in order to acquire these parcels. So it's not ideal, it's just this opportunity we find ourselves presented with.
Councilor Lehman.
Mayor, I agree with the Marshall Road issues and kids, but it's not in the budget, it wasn't planned. The Park Fund has got its hands full with some of the projects we got going on. So, instead of making the progress that we're trying to make on the existing plan worse, I would just try to stay focused on where we're going already.
Councilor Whiting.
I see this as a opportunity that's presented itself in the heart of an area that's just loaded with kids. It isn't an ideal spot, but it's not bad for at least visibility. And if you do look at the properties right now, they're not in the greatest of shape. And the one thing that also occurred to me was eventually, if we do widen Marshall Road, we'll be needing to collect some properties along in there, some right of way, and that might be part of it. I don't know, but I think we cannot let an opportunity like this just slip on by when we can put something there for some kids.
Councilor Lehman.
Maybe a better opportunity is to put an apartment building on this site, capture the park dedication fees, and try to build the park on the opposite side back here.
On where?
That's somebody else's property.
Be back here. There's an open area back on this side, across from the police department. There's one ball field back there or something.
Cross. I don't know. Councilor Luce.
Mr. Looney, isn't there a vacant space over there that's a catch basin or something along there?
Kind of have like a little pond.
Right here. Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about, but.
Where's it at?
Right in the cul-de-sac, right there,
Yeah.
Here?
to the north.
North of there?
North of the park area.
Here.
Yeah, that's a catch basin.
That's a pond area, I
Yeah,
believe.
that's not the exact one I was talking about. The one I'm talking about is off of Eastview Circle, I believe. Maybe I'm wrong.
There is a,
Yeah, 7th and Dakota.
What's that?
7th and Dakota.
Yeah,
On the north side of 7th, on the east side of Dakota.
right.
Yep.
that isn't the pond area you're referring to, is it? I think that's the area you're talking about.
The area I'm thinking about is where Gorman turns. It'd be between the public work, or the engineering building now, and the apartment building. There's an open space there.
Here?
It's, yep. There's an open space right there. So, if any space would make sense, it would be that open space there. But
Okay.
you could capture the dollars by putting an apartment building there and taking the money from it and using it over there.
Councilor Whiting.
Well, the action tonight here isn't buying these properties. It's taking a little better look at, you know, what the feasibility of it is and what it would take to acquire them. We're not out any money by approving this motion here.
No, I concur. I think just looking at it is looking at it.
So do we have a motion? Councilor Whiting.
I'll make a motion to direct staff to retain a real estate agent to determine the feasibility of acquiring the 2 available parcels on the land on Marshall Road for potential park purposes.
Now second.
Second, Councilor Mokel. Discussion? Councilor Luce.
I don't want my name tied to any kid getting killed on 17, so I'll vote no all the way down the line.
Well, you're going to have to not tie your name to any kid getting killed in the city at all. I mean, if there's any sort of car accident or anything ever, I mean,
That will increase the foot traffic by children immensely.
okay. I'm the one that brought this up because I drive by there every time I go from dropping my daughter off at daycare to coming down to City Hall, and there are, I kid you not, hundreds of kids that are in that area, and there are no parks in the area, and that's an opportunity to at least look at. I have no idea what it would cost to do it and what things would cost to get that done, at least for some open green space to play soccer in or something like that. I think it's at least good to look at. So, any further discussion? All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed?
Aye.
Passes 3-2. Thank you very much. All right, before I forget to do it, and I don't think Corky's coming, we have I'm going to hop back to item number 4 for service plaques for city boards and commissions. We have a plaque for Corky Mars for being on the park board from 2006 to 2015. I had the pleasure of working with Corky for a long time. I think we started the park board the exact same year. And so she was great, a phenomenal advocate for Shakopee's parks and recreations and kids and families, and it was really great to work with her. And so I'm sorry she wasn't here tonight. We've got a plaque for her for recognizing her for her long-time service on the Park and Rec Advisory Board. So does anybody have anything else they want to say? Councilor Whiting?
I would like to thank her for her service and also mention her being a major part of the community-built park down in playground down in Huber Park too. I think she was what got that done, and along with many other people. But thank her for her service.
Exactly.
Normally, if she was here, we would be.
There we go.
So there's to Corky.
Perfect. All right, we're going to move on to 9A, Community Center Study Options. Ms. Polly.
A lot of clicks, sorry.
Does anybody want to take a break before we start this?
I was just going to ask that.
Yeah. I'm shocked
Motion
that it
for
didn't
a-
come up.
Motion for a 10-minute recess.
All right, Councilor Lehman, motion for 10-minute recess. Second by Councilor Luce. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Passed unanimously. We are going to go into recess now that you got that up, Jamie. All right, we reconvene the Shakopee City Council meeting, and we will give Jamie a second go at this since we interrupted her the first time. So, Community Center facility study, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of council. On March 31st, you heard the consultants come in for both BK, or Ballard and King, I was calling BK. Ballard and King did the feasibility market analysis study, and 292 Group did the architectural study. They came and gave their presentation to you on the 31st. Council had asked to take a while to take in that information, to look it over, see if there's any questions, then come back tonight to further discuss it. So in your packet, you did receive the about 99% completed draft of their studies. There's one section I'm having them add a little bit of information to, but it's very minor. So like I said, it's pretty much 99% complete. So we'll just review that a little bit tonight of the major outcomes, and then we have one question for you tonight as to whether or not you want to have any open meetings and what those options might be that we would present at those. So I do have a short PowerPoint here to go through. So just a review of the council presentation. For our market analysis feasibility section of the study, the outcome came that the median age in the primary service area, so this isn't just Shakopee, this was in the beginning of that plan, you saw the primary service area, which was about a drive time of 10 minutes around the community center, so it did go a little bit beyond the limits, and it does change with, this is for the main community center component. If you go to just the ice arena, the primary service area gets larger because it's a specialized use. But in that primary service area, the median age is 34.8 years old. It's lower than the state average and the national average. The primary service area's median household income is $86,000. That's higher than the state and the national average. So what the outcome of that was that they predicted and came out with a study was that the spending potential index for social, recreation, club memberships, recreational lessons, and sports is approximately 170, which the national number is 100. So that means that there's a more potential for people in our community with the age and the income compared to the state and national to spend discretionary income on social, recreational services. As part of that, they came up with a programming assessment for facility space. So our feasibility consultant met with a number of stakeholder groups that talked about their needs, their wants, what the current community center offers, what they would like to see offered, what other people in the community offer, as well as services that are similar to ours or maybe competitors of ours. And they put together this assessment needs for programming space. Basically, they told our architectural consultant then how much gym space or how much fitness space we should have in order for our size based on the other feasibility assessments that they had done based on national standards and those kind of things. So with that, on March 3rd, the City Council directed that architect who had gotten those programming assessments to go ahead with a new 2-sheet ice arena facility and repurpose the community center. So that is based on that programming assessment recommendation and that direction. They came up with the proposal that they put in our report and told you on the 31st. They also generated construction cost estimates for these improvements. So what they did in the feasibility study coming forward was there's a new sheet ice arena with the plans of the upper and lower level, in which you saw on the 31st as well, with an estimated cost for construction of $16.7 million. The community center improvements, the upper and the lower level, included at this point all of the amenities as part of the study, included an indoor aquatic park, was put in the area of the current ice arena, because that would be moved off to property that we would not have to purchase. It increased our fitness space by adding an additional fitness facility or aerobics room, pretty much doubled our weight and cardio area. It added an indoor playground, drop-in childcare, and another room for a spinning studio, freeing up our current spinning studio for storage and adding more storage into the facility, as well as adding in this area on the lower level another programming space that would be a multi-purpose room for additional programming, along with storage space and another meeting room. Nothing changes with the gym in this model. The cost of this with the pool and the community center upgrades was $10 million. And then the sports dome was an addition. After working through all of their different studies and the layouts, the best recommendation that they came up with was a separate facility that was on the same campus that could fit. But the sports dome, at this point, is estimated at $6 million. When we move forward tonight, the sports dome is one that council can choose to add on to any project or not do. It's not part of the renovation at all. It would be a standalone facility. So with that, the Ballard and King also came up with an operational analysis for these facilities. This operation analysis represents a conservative approach to estimating the expenses and the revenues for each of the program areas, so just the areas that we had wanted them to look at in the study. The revenues and expenditures spreadsheets that were provided to the city are workable databases. So on this screen, it's a screenshot of an actual Excel database that we do have in hand that we can change, however the project changes. So if we choose to do a little or a lot, we can change any of these numbers based on what our staffing needs will be, what we think our utility costs will be. So they're basing these revenues and expenditures on our current fee structure. So they're not taking into account any type of a fee increase if we were to add these amenities. And they are also adding just a minimal amount or a usable amount of staff, not a minimal amount of staff. They have a staffing spreadsheet where they broke out for me exactly how many staff they were adding to the ice arena based on this design that is being brought forward. So if it gets smaller, if it changes, or if the pool doesn't get built, then we take out those. It's workable, like I said, we can take out those fees and change the bottom line. So like I said, this database will be updated based on final design, market stratification, philosophy of operation, fees and charges, and priority of use, how we're going to use it. Or partners, we can do that too. So revenues, just briefly looking at the revenues that they estimated. These revenues and expenditures are, when it says existing budget, that existing budget is only, in the recreation division we have 8 separate units. This is 5 of those units. It doesn't include our recreation programs because those can be done outside of the community center. However, that's a big part of our revenue. So when you look at that $800,000 of the existing budget in revenue, that is not the total amount of revenue that the recreation department brings in to date. The total amount is about $1.1 million if you include all of our divisions in our department. So this is just including the community center, ice arena, teen center, aquatics, and then the facilities side of the community center. We have 2 separate groups. So I broke it down into our existing revenue for each area, so you can kind of see what portion of our existing revenue of this budget is for each of the areas, and then what their projection is. So what their projected revenue is $1.6 million. So about double of what we currently bring in if we were to do these amenities. On the expenditure side, I apologize, this is small, but it's also in your packet that you received of that study. And as I said, I put on the bottom of here that it does include just those areas within the recreation budget. But our current existing budget, our expenditures, is $2.4 million. And with these potential additions and changes, our new expenditures could be around $4 million. So like I said, these are working documents. These are just based on what they use for the market at the time, based on the current fees that we do, based on the current hours that we run the facility, and that can all be changed based on what hours we set, what our fees would be, what amenities are done. So it's just an idea, but it has all the formulas in there for us to use as we move forward. So the question tonight that had come up at the 31st meeting was council had talked about possibly having some open houses to talk about this project and what might be included in this project. So the first question that we want to pose to council tonight is there a desire to hold 1 or 2 or more open houses? And if so, we have a recommendation of 2 dates that could be possible potentials that we could hold open houses for the community to discuss options. Going forward, there are a number of options that the council can look at tonight and decide if you would want to move forward with these community meetings, would you want to include all of the options? Do you want to just have some of these options? None of the options, and there's one option that is just no additions. We'll get to those. Did you want to discuss right now if you want to have open houses, or do you want me to go through the options?
Let's go through the options first.
Okay. So we have 5 options that are potentially to be discussed tonight. Option A is, and I have separate slides here for each option that's more in depth of what they are, but just a brief overview of the options. Option A is basically the whole plan that the consultants brought forward. The new 2-sheet ice arena on land that we do not have to purchase, remodeling the community center, including the fitness, playground, childcare, and then putting the aquatic facility in the arena shell. Option 2 is all of the above, but putting athletic space in the arena shell, so a sport court facility. With the passing of the school referendum last night, this may be something that isn't necessarily as big of a need, depending upon what comes out of their expansion. But it is still something that we do need in the city as far as indoor space. Option C is to build the new 2-sheet ice arena, remodel the community center, including the fitness, the playground, and childcare, but do nothing to the existing ice arena. So basically leave it dark at this point. Option D is to build the 2-sheet ice arena and do nothing to the community center. Just operate it as it is today, leaving the ice arena also blank or dark at this time. And option E is to not do any improvements, just to update our current sheet of ice refrigeration system. So looking at option A has an estimated cost, and all of these options do not include the turf facility. That is something that you can add on to each of these if you'd like for $6 million. But with the passing of the referendum yesterday, we feel that the turf facility may be something that we could phase in to the community at a future date, depending upon what the school district does or what we may be able to partner with them in the future for these type of needs. So this is without that piece of the study. So option A estimated $27.4 million. As I mentioned, it includes everything that the consultants had brought forward and fit into basically our existing footprint of the community center. The only 2 areas that are different in the community center is this corner by the ice arena, by the pool, is adding a wall to add in lights and a feature to the pool that would not just be the push-up panels that we currently have. And then potentially adding on the front here this indoor playground. That could also fit in the existing footprint, but this is adding on this little square to add a little bit more square footage. So programming services that we could do if this is the option that's moved forward with is the city would have the ability to host tournaments and section games in the arena. Having 2 sheets allows for a lot more programming opportunity, a lot more available ice to the community. We'd be able to open the public ice programming, not just learn to skate, but public open skate, broom ball, even work with the school district on doing different leagues, intramurals, a lot of different options for the public to use. The expanded fitness area and the drop-in childcare offer a lot more flexibility for our members, hopefully bringing in, as you see, our community is a younger community. Many with children, that's one of the biggest things that we hear at the community center is that you don't have any place for me to bring my child while I work out. The Y has it, Dakota has it, a lot of the other area places have it. It's a big need, and I think it would definitely bring more members into our community center. The aquatic area is for families. It's got therapeutic options, fitness swimming. We could bring our learn to swim lessons right into our existing facility, bringing in more families, getting more people through the program because the water is warmer, it's more convenient, it's the atmosphere. And then the increased programming space allows, so that second floor multi-purpose room that's here on the lower level, we could use that room for archery and then leave the gym open. We wouldn't have to close it on Thursdays and close the walking track because of arrows flying. So we could have a programming space that would allow for more open gym. That's been a philosophy of the community center for many years, is to try to always have one half of our gym available for our members. That's part of their membership. They don't like coming thinking they can play open gym and we've got a program that's closed the whole gym down. So we have communicated very well with the public now. on when our gyms are open, but this would even give them more opportunities to use our gym and bring in more classes, more programs, more birthday parties, that sort of thing. So that's the option A. Option B is the 2-sheet ice arena, remodeling the community center, but instead of putting the aquatic center in the existing ice shell, we could put in these sport courts. We could do 2 sport courts, or we could do 3. This one has an outline. I know you can't see it on this overhead. This has been updated from our consultants since the packet went out, because this is an option we hadn't originally been tasked to look at. They have put this together for us with some better cost estimates. But we could fit these. The issue with sport courts or basketball courts in this shell is they are what we call middle school size. They are not high school length because we don't have the length to put in an 84-foot court. So they are a middle school size, which means we could have youth tournaments, but for a high school game we couldn't play here. However, there is the ability maybe to put one court this lengthwise that could be a full-size high school court. However, that's not necessarily needed, we don't think, because the school district has their high school courts as well. But for youth could use this. The sport court surfacing could allow for multiple teams to come in and practice, to use it for little pickup games, that sort of thing. We could do youth tournaments, youth volleyball, youth basketball tournaments. Same benefits for the 2-sheet ice facility as the tournaments and public offerings. Same with the fitness center. So the sport court, like I said, it's increased indoor space for the youth programming. And then again, the same with the gym. So a lot of the same benefits. Oops, I'll go back one second. And option B has a cost of $23.1 million. So it's about a $4 million difference to not put in the aquatic center and put in gym space. In addition to, with all of these, you have to look at the operating cost. Long-term, operating a pool is more costly than operating a gym, staffing and such. So that's something to consider as well. Option C has an estimated cost of $20.7 million. It's building the new 2-sheet ice arena, remodeling the community center, but leaving the existing ice arena shell dark. It has all the same benefits as mentioned before, other than the arena would not be programmed in this option at this time. Potentially leaving it dark, you could maybe have trade shows in there or large community type of events. But at this point, it wouldn't be a regularly scheduled programmed area. Option D is $16.7 million. It's just to build the new 2-sheet ice arena. Leave the community center as it is with the ice arena dark. And as I mentioned, what it could be used for. And that's I already talked about. And option E is to do nothing with expansion or additions, and upgrade our current ice sheet, which is necessary to do from the R22 system that we have to an ammonia system for a cost of $1.75 million. So if council concurs, we ask, and if you'd like to set open houses, to set the dates that we had recommended, and provide us option or input on the options that you might prefer us going forward with to the community. Any questions?
All right, thank you very much. First, let's talk about the open house piece. Is that something we'd like to do, and get public input as to how this should go, how people think what's necessary, what's not? Councilor Whiting.
Regarding that open house piece, would we have the, how we plan on paying for this at the open house to discuss that with the citizens too?
We don't have, we can have the options there. I mean, we can have a non-referendum or we can have a referendum option, and we can have different options just like Jamie has presented today. We can absolutely have those pieces available, but without having an option selected, without having a what we want to do, it makes it really difficult to put the financing piece on it.
Well, we'll get there tonight, I'm thinking. But other question, what kind of And I think it was in here, what kind of money can we get out of the different groups, the hockey clubs, the high schools? Is there corporate sponsors opportunities? And has leasing space at the community center been discussed? I don't think we've touched on it a little bit, but.
Well, when we had our stakeholder meetings, we did meet with all of the different youth associations. We met with the high school, we met with the hospital, we met with the YMCA. There are many groups interested in what we're doing, and could be potential partners in some way or another. None of the details have been discussed at this time without knowing what we're working towards and what we're going towards.
Sure. Do you want to say something?
Jamie just touched on it, Mr. Mayor and council members. It really depends on what you do. I mean, if you put in the family aquatic park, there really isn't a sports association that you would look to help fundraise, for that activity. If you're looking at putting in more sport courts, we could maybe go to some of our youth sports associations and see if they see that as a benefit and they're, willing to help us fundraise for it. So, your options for fundraising and financing vary depending on which option you want to pursue. I think there's probably some degree of option everywhere. What percentage of the cost it would cover is to be determined.
Sure. Thank you.
Other questions, thoughts? Councilor Luce?
Well, from looking at some of the other community centers around the area that have done this and some that have failed, fundraising with the different groups is very, very uncertain. I mean, they were all for it at the beginning, but when it comes down to putting boots on the ground, they're not there. They don't show up. It's kind of interesting that 4 of the 5 options have 2 sheets of ice. I believe hockey in our study was number 8 and a pool was number 1. Seems like we're carrying somebody's water here. That's my thought.
Okay. Councilor Whiting?
I'd like to touch on that. The sheets of ice, that I don't believe the sheets of ice are going to pass any referendum here in town. It's something that a community does for the youth and for the people that use the ice, and it's expensive. And we are falling behind. It was a want that we had a second sheet of ice, and I believe in our community it's becoming a need now. Mm-hmm. And I think that second sheet of ice is something that how we do it, and we've kind of gone through those options, but I think that's somewhere we have to get to.
Mm-hmm. Councilor Lehman had his hand up first.
I'm with option E. Take care of what we got. I don't think it requires any.
We're not asking for you to choose an option. What we're asking for is, do we want to have open houses to discuss this with the public?
I don't think option E needs an open house. I think we pay for it out of general maintenance, and that's what I support. I don't support the other options.
Okay. Do you support having open houses, community input on that, or do you not think that's necessary?
I think it's poor timing. I think it's not representative of our survey, and I don't support any of them.
So back to the open house question.
I don't support it, no.
Okay. Good. Councilor Mokel.
I definitely think that, and agree with Councilor Whiting, is that I think that we're at a need stage for those 2 sheets of ice, especially when the 1 sheet was built. We only had a boys team, and now we have both boys and girls. And the late nights, those types of things, this is where it becomes a need. And I also agree that it's just not going to be something that a referendum will pass, but it's something that our kids are looking forward to be competitive. And I agree that we should just have the open houses to ask the public their opinion.
Okay. Councilor Luce.
I'll go along with the open houses. I want to get as much input as we can. One problem I have, though, is I've been up there on numerous occasions and looked in the hockey area. There's nobody there. Weekends, during the day. I mean,
Right now is our off season, so yes, it's not programmed right now. Mm-hmm. But I also don't have an ice arena manager to help sell the ice at this point, so that is not, it's not a typical year for the ice arena. I just don't have the time to go and sell it.
where are you on the manager situation?
We have interviews this week, so I'm hoping to get someone in as soon as possible.
All right. So the first piece, Ms. Wilson.
Mr. Mayor, if I might, Councilmember Luce, your observation that none of the options they all include a second sheet of ice. And that's the first time we've heard that we might want to look at an option that doesn't. So if that's council's direction and you want to see an option that brings more amenities to the community, but a second sheet of ice isn't one of those amenities, we can go back to the consultants and pay them to develop those, recognizing that it's entirely new footprint then, because by not moving the ice arena, we haven't created any space to work with in the existing community center. But that's very doable. If that's the direction of council, is that they want to see an option that adds amenities but doesn't create a second sheet of ice, that's just a matter of the council directing staff to develop that option and get it, up and running and ready to go. When we talked about, do we want to add on to the current sheet or build 2 new somewhere else, and again on the 31st, that notion that you wanted to see an option that didn't include a second sheet of ice was never mentioned. Therefore, one hasn't been developed. But if that's the preference, we can certainly do that.
Anything to add to that? Yeah.
Yeah, I want to see what the people have to say. We need to have the open houses. The only other thing I have to say is that from the information that I've gathered, we have more citizens over 65 in town than we have people that are associated with hockey. So we're going to be asking a lot of people who are never going to touch that ice to be paying for it.
Councilor Whiting?
And I'm going to quip back a little bit here. How do we make that space for that number one opportunity and save money and killing a few different birds with one stone is by creating that space for the pool, which was number one, and also creating that space for the hockey, which wasn't high on the list, but has definite need and huge following for that. So I think it's there. I'm going to go ahead and offer, let's see, ask that we set May 28th and June 1st as 2 open houses for the community to review and provide input on the community center improvements options and to provide direction on those options to be presented, or to have the public provide options for us and comments.
And I will second.
Councilor Mogul, discussion? Councilor Luce?
Could we maybe put a third date on that just so we give more people a chance for input?
Sure.
I mean, if somebody's got a date that they would think would be better or should be added.
I think we can leave that up to staff to find a date that would work for them.
And make a third.
Location.
Yeah. It might
Just make
be-
a third one.
Make a third one. Let them find a, if you think it's necessary.
Yeah, third is great.
And Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
just to clarify on that, on the motion that is asked, the last part, the provide direction of the options to be presented, is what we're asking of the council to provide direction on those 5 options of, are those the 5 options? You want us to take all of them, or do you want to?
I think we're doing the dates first.
No, I know, but.
But the motion included the-
His
Oh, did it?
motion
Okay.
included
Oh.
that, so I wanted to bring that.
I thought the motion was to that the public provide us with direction on the options, but I see what you're saying. Okay.
So let's just take
That's what I took it to.
the open house dates first. So we'll have the 2 dates plus a third. Are you okay with that as the motion?
Yeah.
And
And I
Councilor Mogul?
concur.
So add a third date, if we could. Any other discussion on that, the open house piece? All right. Further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Passes unanimously. Now the options piece. We've got 5 options in front of us. Do we like those options for consideration? Are we good with those? Councilor Mogul?
I would say go with A, C, and D.
Can you bring those up for us, Jamie?
What?
Can you bring those up for us?
Yes.
A, C, and D?
I'll bring the list up and then we can look at pictures if we need to. Here. So there's the list of options.
And why is that, Councilor Mogul?
I just think that if we do A, we have the aquatics facility. If you take B, you're building into that the athletic space, where I'd rather have it be just shelled and then used for aquatics at a later date as an option. That's why I didn't choose B.
Okay.
I'd prefer all 5 myself.
Well, I don't think B is now that the referendum's passed, I don't think B is a very,
Right.
is not an option that's is needed for the community anymore.
Well, and I'd let the community decide that.
Well, why don't we just present viable options?
And E's not a viable option?
E's a viable option, but there's not much discussion that has to happen on that piece.
He's an option that's gonna happen if the other options don't happen.
Right. It's going to happen no matter what if the AC or D don't happen. So if we choose not to do anything, E has to happen.
It's already in the budget.
B only gets accomplished if you don't put the aquatic facility in the existing
Right.
ice arena.
But if aquatic is number one on our list, then you're filling that space, and so then you got to build that somewhere else at some point. That's where I'd leave it empty as a shell to put the aquatic facility in there later.
Right, and we don't know if that's what they want or not, but whatever.
I like your options.
Councilor Luce?
All 5. Let the people who are gonna pay for it decide.
But why is B a good option anymore?
I'm just saying, it's an option, just let everybody look at all of them and, you know, give us their input.
Okay.
Doesn't hurt anything.
It confuses it though.
It does, yeah.
It does.
That's
Then it
that's my
makes
only
them think that
concern.
we need it.
Right.
It's
I would
easier to
rather
take
have-
options off
if
the
it's not
table.
if it's not a viable option that makes a ton of sense for us anymore, I'd rather remove it and get real solid feedback on the ones that we know make the
top
most sense
three.
that we want to look at. Does that make sense?
Makes some sense, but it, you know, if it's not that viable, then people aren't gonna use it for input, so it'll just fall out on its own.
Right.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
To add a little bit more information on option B, this packet was out to you on Friday, so it was prior to yesterday's vote. Had yesterday's vote not been successful, option B would have probably been a more recommended option because indoor gym space, athletic space, is highly sought after in this community. With the schools being as full as they are with activities, the community center as well, that is a high need. However, in the plans for the new high school expansion, whether it gets built or not, that's all to be determined as they design what will actually be done with the current high school. They do include an indoor field house that then takes care of these courts. So with yesterday's positive outcome on that referendum, the indoor athletic space that's needed, and it says even in our draft from our consultants that if we as a city don't have to do it, if the school district's going to do it in some capacity, it's better off that it goes with the school because of the high need that the school will use it for their athletics as well as what our youth associations can use it for. So he does make that recommendation in our thing. So this was an option brought forward to you before we knew what yesterday's outcome would be. I do think that if the school district's going to be putting in gym space, the city may not want to duplicate that and add that resource.
If they pick option B and the school does that, we'll be able to save some money on option B, right?
I'm sorry, say that again?
If the citizens pick option B and a school puts them facilities in, we'll be able to save that money on option B then.
Right, then the ice sheet would be empty.
You'd be down to option C, basically.
Yes.
So then why present it?
Yes.
And as I'm sitting here listening and thinking about it, I think I'd also like to include option E. Just as a,
No vote.
so everybody understands that this is an option that we can do, and if we don't do A, B, C, or D, that E is where we're at. So people know that is the option that's left. So the only one I would like to pull out is B.
I concur.
Are you okay with that, Mike?
You know, if the high school is gonna build that field house and they have such a great need for it, is there gonna be room for the public to use that field house? We would need option B.
Okay, let's go with all 5 then. Do we need a motion on that? Are we okay with all 5? We good? I mean, we can pull it back if we want to. We can put them out there, especially if we're having 3. We can take time to talk with people about them and walk them through them. And
I think it's too much. I mean, option E, I understand because, you know, you want to tell people where we're going if these fail, because we do have that history. But I don't see the need to even put B out there.
okay,
I don't either.
yes, sir.
They basically got everything done. They just have to blow it up for their presentation, so
Yeah.
it's not like it
Not a big
costs
deal.
anything.
I'm just concerned about getting the most not the most positive, but the most constructive feedback.
It concentrates it a little better too, so you have better numbers. So if we know we're not going to do B, why are we letting people vote on B? Because it might tell us a little more about A, C, or D. That's my opinion.
All right, so let's put it in the form of a motion.
I'll make a motion to discuss options A, C, D, and E at the open houses.
I'm second that.
Councilor Whiting, discussion? All right, seeing none, all's in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed?
Aye.
Passes 3-2 with Councilors Lehman and Luce in dissent. All right, my next question, Jamie, is based on the open houses and those kinds of things. What, A, how are we gonna let people know about it? How does that kind of thing get advertised? And then, B, how do you generally get the feedback back to you? How do we have constructive feedback that we can actually act upon, and how does that work?
Okay. I feel that we would do this similar to when we do a park development. We have a couple of different options, and we have a lot of time now we have 3 weeks to get the word out, which is a pretty good amount of time. We can do a school flyer to all of the students that go home for their parents to see it. We can put it on our social media, on our website. I will get one of these blown up to put at the community center, since the first meeting is at the community center. I will talk with our communications coordinator for other ideas as to how to get it out, maybe put it in the paper, but we have a couple weeks to get it advertised. And then while we have these open houses, we always have a evaluation or a comment card that people can turn in, and we also have that available on our website, so we can put that out on social media and stuff like that too, for them to go to our website. If they didn't get to fill it out at the night, or they couldn't come, they can view all of the options online, fill out the comment card, and submit it that way, and we can easily put that into a spreadsheet and have it usable as we do with our park development.
Thank you. Councilor Lehman.
Can we use public access also?
Yes, we can. Yep.
All right.
Mayor?
Yes, Ms. Wilson.
As Jamie and I had talked about structuring these open houses, we would certainly encourage all council members to come and attend directly and talk to the citizens that are there and hear for yourselves. So staff will post them all as a location where a majority or a quorum of the council may be present, so that you're covered on that. And like I said, we would encourage you to come and hear the feedback directly. We'll extend that same encouragement to the members of the Park and Rec Advisory Board to have them come and be ears and be on the receiving end of the feedback, so that it's not just, a couple of staff people that are there to answer questions and so on, but that we can have more engagement.
Thank you very much. Any other questions on this item? Matt, are you going to come to them? The open
Maybe.
houses?
What's the dates on them?
28th, 1st, and to be determined.
What days of the
First.
week are they?
June 1st.
Thursday and a Monday right now.
I don't
May
know about
28th will be
June.
at the community center from 7 to 9, and June 1st will be at Eagle Creek Elementary from 7 to 9. And then we'll set a third date.
Perfect. Thank you very much. Great work.
Thank you.
Then we move on to 9B, which is Amazon, which is not intended to be a big discussion or lots of discussion. The public open house will be on the 19th for this. This is simply informational, just so we can get information out to everybody, so that everyone has the same across the board knowledge as to what's going on with the project as it is today. Ms. Wilson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The request for tax increment financing assistance that was received from Amazon was heard last week by the Economic Development Advisory Committee. On the agenda for tomorrow's Planning Commission are the land use aspects of the project. So the Planning Commission will not be talking about whether the city should or should not institute a tax increment financing district, but whether they'll be taking up the final plat of the property, as well as a requested conditional use permit for an overheight structure. So that will be before the Planning Commission tomorrow, and as the mayor indicated, the topic is before the City Council on May 19th, and you'll get that night both the planning aspects, the Planning Commission's recommendations on the land use items, as well as the public hearing on the requested tax increment financing. So that's the general schedule that we are working on. There's one really unique aspect to this tax increment financing project that makes it different from past TIF programs that the city has looked at. And that is that Scott County has indicated their intentions to take advantage of a provision in state law that allows them to take increment off the top of the district to fund enhancements to county roads that are necessitated by the development of the project and are not otherwise planned for in the county's capital improvement program. The law has been in place for quite some time. It has not been utilized in Scott County possibly ever, or certainly in any time that anybody's still around and involved in these projects can recall. We can't put our finger on an example of this having been used in the past. So while the public hearing notices that went out are required to show the full tax increment generated by the plan, and that's about a $6.4 million number, the dollar amounts that we may be looking at actually contemplating as an financial assistance to the company are significantly smaller than that. There is no limit to the amount that the county board can take, and the county board does not need the city's approval or anything to take that increment. So that's a significantly different component of the structure, and it's one that is still evolving. We just received today a great deal of more updated information from Scott County about what they think those county road improvements will cost. That action will need to go before their board, and that will happen prior to your May 19th meeting, but it might be as late as that very morning. So it's a continuously evolving situation of exactly how much money we are talking about here and what the city might have to work with from a tax increment financing district. So staff will keep working on that. And lastly, representatives of Amazon have extended an invitation for city and or county officials to come visit one of their similar distribution centers. And they're looking at the center in New Jersey. I believe it's Robbinsville, New Jersey, is where it's located. And you could see for yourself the type of facility that they are proposing to locate here in Shakopee. So it was suggested that possibly 2 council members, so that we are not in violation of the open meeting law, a city staff person, and the invitation has been extended to and is also being considered by the state and greater MSP organization, and as well as the county has been invited. I need to make sure that they are aware of that. The date they are looking at is Friday, May 15th. It would be fly in early in the morning and fly back to Minneapolis-St. Paul Airport late that evening. It would be pay our own way, so the city of Shakopee would be picking up the airfare costs if you choose to take up this invitation. So I need to know from the council if there is any interest in making this trip. Like I said, the date could possibly change, but we're pretty tuned in given our schedule. The whole point of going would be to see it before it comes to you on May 19th. So right now we're really looking at Friday, May 15th for that trip if there's an interest on the part of any council members in going. So that's the only kind of feedback or action item I need from council tonight, is to know if you would like, if any of you would like to go.
I won't be going.
Thank you, sir.
Don't fly very well.
Does anybody else think it's good to go? Want to go? There's been a significant amount of discussion and concern around the quality of the jobs and the work conditions is a big piece of that's been talked about with this project, and I think it would be a good idea for someone from our council with their own eyes to go see what things look like there. I'm not available that day. I'm not going to go, but if anybody else would like to go, I think that would be a good thing.
Send Kathy packing with a camcorder.
Yeah.
I don't think they'd let her take a video camera in, would be my guess.
I've talked to other chambers around the area that have Amazon. You don't take anything in there.
Right. So
I'd be happy to go. I just need to check my schedule. For me, I can't make a decision tonight.
Okay.
I think it's a good idea. I think there are a lot of questions in the community and on this body that may be able to be answered. Maybe not. It's hard to put Shakopee up against New Jersey, but
True.
we don't know. I don't know. I've never been there.
You got it backward. It's hard to put New Jersey up against.
Well, there you go. But I think it's a good idea, and you know, two people would.
This is a suburb of New Jersey.
I think I could have.
A suburb of this.
A suburb of a major city.
Well,
It's a smaller
yeah.
town. I've
Yeah,
spoken to
sure
their
it is.
chamber.
Okay.
I think I could be able to go. Not that I'm
Okay.
hugely interested, but I would do that.
Councilor Luce?
I can free my calendar.
Okay. This is state travel. As we so gently learned a few years ago, we need to have council approval for out-of-state travel. So we just need a motion allowing for. Yes, ma'am.
My suggestion would be that you direct the, 2 council members and 1 staff person. That staff person would be Ms. DiMaggio, to attend, and we will work with the 3 that have expressed an interest and figure out, exactly whose schedule is available for that day.
I'll make
Okay.
that motion for 2 council members and 1 staff person to attend on Friday, May 15th to New Jersey.
Second.
So, Councilor Luce, discussion.
Do we have to say who the staff and the council people are? Or doesn't it matter?
I think we've been clear enough for the
Okay.
public record tonight.
And if you both can go, I mean, that way I don't have to worry about my schedule.
Let me do some checking, but I think
Yeah.
I can.
We'll work it out.
Yeah.
But Mike is going for sure.
Just want to make sure this has been clarified with the city attorney, that there's no issues with any.
As long as we do not have a quorum of city council attending, and as long as we're paying our own way, this is a valid public purpose expenditure.
Thank you.
Not like we're going sightseeing.
They have a location in Tampa, but somehow the invitation wasn't to go to the Tampa location.
All right, so we have a motion by Councilor Mogul, second by Councilor Luce. Any further discussion? Yes, sir.
Do I get hazard pay for having to be with Sam for?
It's a great question that we'll need to talk to Jim
Keep
Thompson
cookies
to
in your
explore
pocket.
further.
Keep
Yeah.
cookies in your pocket.
Yeah, exactly. All right, any further discussion? Seeing none, all's in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Passes unanimously. Any other items we need to discuss? All right, entertain a motion to adjourn to May 19th, 2015 at 7 p.m. Councilor Mokel.
I'll make a motion to adjourn to May 19th, 2015 at 7 p.m.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Second, Councilor Luce. Discussion. Seeing none, all's in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Passes unanimously. We are adjourned.